we'll get all the high-paid technical professionals and everyone in Perth and we won't have to pay FIFO wages. The problem is you need the innovative thinking on the field now, which is quite a big disruption in how the industry actually functions. So a lot of people like myself worked in the Pilbara, on-site innovating, and we were talking to all the people who used to operate in the equipment down in Perth to call and say, remap this survey. So that's all very good, and we see that's impressive technology. But the one thing I want to talk about is how does that change my career or my impression of the industry? So I worked at Rio Tinto for a long time. I managed the pit operations, so designed and also looked at drilling technologies to cut down costs and drove those projects, teams of 400 or 500 people. And then I went to AME Research. I went to the finance side, and people thought, sure, that's a bit of a bizarre turn. Why would you go to finance and be involved in designing computer programming? Where is that relevant? One thing I noticed was in AME, and that's what I'm involved in, I speak to all the steel mills, I speak to all the companies, our biggest customers, our biggest investment banks, need to understand technology because it's changing the competitive landscape. So I've come in and basically filled in that void. And what we do at AME, we do all the cost curves and we show people that when you're investing in these corporations, the companies that adopt this technology are in the lowest quartile of the cost curve. Then you start thinking, okay, everyone has financial information. We all see costs and we see, well, what's the real story? So one thing I always talk about is going back to elements and seeing how can technology change things. We've recently been involved, one thing I'm working on is value-adjusted cost curves. Well, this is what's a value-adjusted cost curve? In terms of iron ore is not just sold on its grade. It's sold on its contaminants, so silica or alumina. So who knows FMG, the third biggest mining ore company? They always say we're the lowest C1 cash cost producer. I love that. C1 cash cost. What's a C1 cash cost? Just mining, that's it. We're a good company to invest in. What they don't tell you is they get heavily discounted by the steel mills in China. And when I go to China and Tokyo and I talk to all the steel mills, they're only getting $37 a tonne. Wow. But hang on, $37 a tonne? I thought the iron ore price was $60-something. That's a cost, but they don't report that cost. So once you understand your innovation, your technology, you can revolutionise the follow-on industries, not just the big producers, so the financial advice companies. So we started to introduce these value-adjusted cost curves. You know, let's take that discounting on iron ore as a cost. AME, we're a small private company. We've seized 30% market share in 1 year from McKinsey consultants in the mining field. Now that is a pretty, just by one graph, just the way you do it. So I suppose the main point I wanted to communicate in my presentation is the power of technology disrupting our industries. But also, you can see this is very fascinating, driverless trucks, driverless drills. And we talk about all the Google cars, all those amazing technologies, but we don't actually think about is what's the follow-on disruptive technology I can bring to other sectors? What's the follow-on story? So that's sort of whether it's optimising your job or how you monitor performance or costs or any information. Because when you think of finance or analysts industry, you think it's a bit dry. But you can see what a picture I'm trying to paint is understanding these technologies, understanding things in the field, how disruptive technology doesn't just have to be in products or manufacturing, but can actually be in financial services, information, marketing, a lot of opportunities. So thank you for that. I hope that was interesting, and I'm open to questions when we have the question section later. Thank you.
Sophisticated telemetry that Rio is using, they're able to gather data which can then be used in ways that actually optimize the structure of the mine itself. I met up last year with the Chief Strategy Officer of Alibaba, and he was giving a talk about Alibaba, and he said that our competitive advantage is not that we're good at building platforms and good at interacting with our customers and so on. Yes, that's all good. But he said our real competitive advantage is our access to and understanding of data. And on that basis, they're now building a health business and they're building a movie business. These are things which are very different from what they've been doing in the past, but they all depend on data. So thank you for the very strong points about that, Leonard. We're now going to turn to our third speaker, Rod Lopez. Rod is he's in charge of manufacturing for one of Australia's great multinationals, Cochlear. Thank you, Rod.
Hello, how's everyone going? I'm going to put the timer 10 minutes. And I don't have slides nor a video, but I'm going to be a little bit controversial. I'm going to start with a few questions for you guys. So who in the room is actively engaged in a substantial innovation program in your business or your institution? Hands up, who is doing that right now? 2 people, 3 people. So only 3 people in this room are engaged in a significant transformation program in any business or organization. Wow. So let me ask another question. Who in the room is in charge of leading people in the organization? So hands up, who has people to lead in the organization? 1, 2, 3 and a half. 3 and a half. Well, let me tell you, in my view, the answers you've provided are wrong and you miserably failed. Because innovation, I think, and this is where I'm going to be a little bit controversial, we tend to over-dramatize the innovation. And you hear about big research funds and grants and CEOs talking about transforming and reinventing the business and all of that. And absolutely, you know, you need that, okay? But I think we over-dramatize innovation. We put too much of the wrong effort into what we call innovation. I think innovation is a lot simpler than that. And that's where I'm going to challenge your thinking a little bit. On the side of leadership, leadership is not a position, it's a choice, right? And so anyone, anytime, whenever you are in a situation where you're going to make a decision, or you're going to help someone, you're going to offer help, you're a leader, right? Now, I'm in charge of about 750 people globally in the manufacturing network for Cochlear. And my role has been that of a transformation leader, right? And so I spent 10 years in GM, Holden, in automotive before I moved to Sydney. Great Sydney, look at the weather, show off. And I moved in here with the single mission of transforming the supply chain in Cochlear. Okay? And so you would have thought, when my boss asked me, okay, so what's your program? What are you going to do? How much money do you need? Right? It wasn't about millions. It wasn't about Industry 4.0. It wasn't about the next super duper automation system. Of course, there is a room for those things. But it was more about organizational innovation, right? And so if you think about innovation more systemically, things start to make a little bit more sense. So just think about it this way. So you have a business, right? And so there's an organization, there's a business, and the business can innovate in what it does. It can also innovate in the way it markets its products and services. Coca-Cola is a great example of how, by changing the color of the bottle or the label, they make you think you're drinking something else, but actually it's nothing but the same drink, right? The food industry is big on that. So there's the business innovation, there's the way the business markets itself. But then inside the business, there's an organization, and the organization uses technologies and processes to deliver a product or a service, right? Does that make sense? Very simple. Did I put a mental image of that in your head? Right. So organizational innovation is probably the single most important part where every business and every leader, including yourselves who think are not leaders, should be innovating. But with that, I'm going to try to leave you with one tool, because out of all this, you know, the conferences that I attend, if I attend a conference, you should at least learn one thing, right? And then it pays for itself. Whatever money you spent or your organization has spent in sending you here should at least transform into one thing that you're going to be able to use at work, right? And so we use a single process that has engaged the entire organization in doing this under-acknowledged and underappreciated incremental innovation, right? Which has transformed the business entirely. So if I told you that as a result of ideas that our team members in the operations team were able to not only think of, but also implement last year, we saved $10 million out of the bottom line and enabled the business to grow by 10%, would you believe me? These are ideas in Post-it notes using what we call the PIC matrix, right? And as a result of that, we cut $10 million out of the bottom line. And not only that, we were able to offer the people in the region, so our salespeople, some competitive advantage that we've never had before and our competitors don't have. For example, agility, the ability to run many different types of product at the same time through the production lines, so customers don't have to wait for these terrible batch sizes that used to be the standard in the past. Right? So hundreds of ideas, $10 million. Last month alone, let's say if I choose Brisbane operations, there's about 200 people there. Last month, 150 ideas, 60 implemented. Right? Nothing too revolutionary. But let me tell you, that is the foundation for all of these other driverless trucks to actually even come to fruition. If you don't have an organization that is able to engender this responsibility for everyday improvement from everyone in the business, then you might as well pack up and go home. Because the technologies are out of fashion now, right? So you think of Cochlear, and Cochlear is like, wow, you know, every time I say I work in Cochlear, everyone thinks it's some sort of super duper innovative company that, and look, yeah, we do. And we do a lot of disruptive innovation to some extent. But at the end of the day, it is the people inside this organization that should feel the responsibility and the accountability to contribute every day to ideas, many of which are the genesis for complete full transformations, such as the ones that we've had in the manufacturing network. So the tool I'm talking about is the PIC matrix, and I'm going to draw it for you. It's very simple. This is the one that I really would like you to think about, because you can use it for anything. I hope this is not a permanent marker. So if you imagine the effort on one side and the impact on the other side, and you get people talking about what's going on. What are you doing? Oh, yeah, you know, I'm just doing some drawing for this new